Welcome everybody, welcome back to Wickedlonghike. Most of the videos you see here on YouTube about hiking are stories about people who have gone out and had a great day hiking, and we love to watch those. But we thought as we prepare for our February 2018 attempt at the Appalachian Trail through hike, that it might be worthwhile looking back to a hike which we took back in 2015. The plan was simple. Start our hike where we had left off a previous section hike at Connecticut 41 at the Undermountain Trail. We would leave our car 43 miles north. We would start, hike up over Mount Race, Mount Everett, and then we would continue to go as far as we could into Massachusetts. For some of you who are new to the hiking world, we thought it might be helpful if you took a look at what we as hikers follow when we use the Guthook app or the Guthook guide to the Appalachian Trail. If you look at it going from left to right, you see it gives you your elevation in feet and it gives you your mileage. It gives you also indications for where you might want to pay attention. For instance, you see a raindrop as a water source. Binoculars would be a place to look out, and then you might see a peak for a summit view. You'll see forks in the roads, you'll see places to stay. As you can see, we would be following from left to right, and our peak first would be Mount Race, and then down into the valley, and then back to that second peak. That morning, our hike couldn't have gone better. It was a beautiful morning, hot in the valley, but as we climbed, we caught more and more of a beautiful breeze coming from the east. As you can see, Grandma Shortie here is looking east from the first beautiful summit shot that we had on top. We had just talked to some through hikers, we had talked to day and section hikers on our way up, and we were feeling good. Well, not really. If you're a section hiker, you know that those first days back on the trail really beat your legs and your feet up, because you have in your mind how you felt when you had left the trail the last time. But the first day on any trail, climbing up, is always a pretty good beating, but we enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we knew we had a lot of miles to follow, so our time at the top of the mountain wasn't too long. And we knew that we would have to get going. So we left the views and we followed along the trail. And as you can see, the trail literally hugs the cliff here. Look up just about halfway up this frame and you're going to see that white mark. That tells you that white blaze is where the trail goes. Then somehow something went wrong. From in behind me, I heard Grandma Shortie fall. Don't be misled. We've both fallen many times before. It's just the nature of the activity that you're going to fall. But this was different.
Just hit the balls, and we had stopped and talked to some actually through hikers, and we then were walking across this open bald, and it was beautiful, and I'm afraid of heights, but I was far enough back that I could see everything, so I was feeling pretty confident just before the fall. Well, I remember the terrain wasn't that bad, and I remember looking in the rocks that were coming down almost was like a staircase that was natural staircase. So I was looking around, which is number one mistake. And when I came off the little rock to the ground, I missed that there was a little stump sticking out. And I think somehow I caught my foot, and that's why I fell. I remember falling clearly in slow motion and not being able to control the fall. My trekking poles that I thought were going to support me, I wasn't really using them well, I guess, because I ended up twisting onto the trekking pole. I remember hearing something break, snap, and I remember that I didn't want to move my leg, that something was wrong.
And indeed, something was wrong. We would come to find out that when she fell, Grandma Shortie had fractured her fibula. The fibula, you might recall, is that smaller bone in the lower leg. It was not a displaced fracture, but it was clean through and through. She was able to put some weight on it, and she had some limited motion, but she also had pain. Now, you would think I would be able to figure out what the situation was, having been a paramedic for my whole career, but I was confused. In some ways, it looked like a high ankle sprain. Some ways, it very much looked like a fractured leg. I guess it was that old training I got as a young firefighter or medic that kicked in at that moment, that reminded me that the most important thing you can do when things go wrong is come to a stop. Both of us look back now and realize how important it was to simply stop and think about all of our options, to take a deep breath, and to come up with a new plan.
My thoughts are always just get me out of here, so I kind of do that flight and panic. So mine was I was going to walk out, no matter what the other options would be. We were close to the top. There could be a helicopter. That was never happening. You could call and get help, and I didn't want help because I was embarrassed. If that makes any sense at all, I was embarrassed that I had fallen, that I was foolish, and not paying attention to where I was going. So of all of those things, then it was just nope. I just want to get out of here. I can walk on this.
So the helicopter removal wasn't a big go for you?
It was a petrifying thing. I do not like heights at all, and no, that would never be a go for me unless I'm unconscious.
And if you know Grandma Shortie as I do, no one was putting her into a basket and flying her off the mountain. And neither was she going to be carried willingly down that mountain. We had to stop and come up with a new plan. And so our plan for our hike suddenly changed. We decided the best course of action was to continue forward. We would descend from Mount Race to the Racebrook Falls trailhead and then continue 0.3 miles east, where the trail book said that there would be a campsite with platforms, privy, water, and bear box. All very important considerations, considering now we knew we would be spending the night. If you take a look at the look here from the Guthook app, you can see simply that the trail was going to be a straight downhill, and it was rugged. It took us, 2 hours, and we were running out of water. But Grandma Shortie continued just slowly moving along, agonizing each step, but remaining completely focused as to what she needed to do.
I don't remember a lot of the hike. I remember that I was going at a snail's pace or slower, and at one point where I was trying to walk along, you were up ahead and you looked back at me and you said, I kind of like this pace. You can really look around and see everything. And I said, well, maybe you, but not me.
So, I don't think that's exactly how you phrased it, but we'll edit it,
yes,
that version.
Mm-hmm.
And what about when we got to the platform, we got the tent set up? What do you remember of the night itself? What were your...
I don't remember being in too much pain. I remember thinking when we first got there and we set up the tent and I ate supper that maybe we could continue. Maybe it was just a sprain and we could actually continue walking the trail tomorrow. And even at night, I remember I couldn't climb up onto the platform without using my knees or sitting down first and swinging my legs. But I still wasn't aware at how bad that it was.
What now in the morning you get up, was it feeling worse than it was when you went to bed? Or?
Well, we had put it up on my backpack, so I'd slept with it up all night. I remember just thinking maybe it would be better because it had rest. And then that first step down was nope, not better. But I don't remember it being better or worse. I had taken some ibuprofen and some Tylenol for the pain, and then I had slept through with Benadryl. So I really took another ibuprofen and Tylenol so that the pain was moderate. It was doable.
What about the descent out? That was a pretty rugged section of trail. What do you remember that?
You tell me that I walked across a river twice and stuff. I don't remember. I do remember coming up an embankment, and I remember that I had to kind of climb with my leg and my knee.
That night, as Grandma Shortie slept, I was able to get some access with my cell phone to the internet. And the more I read, the more I became apprehensive that maybe we hadn't made the best of decisions. The trail we were taking was extremely strenuous. In fact, a young man had died there a few years ago down around the waterfalls. When I did finally be able to locate a good topographical look of the trail we were heading down, I became even more concerned. If you look here around that blue arrowhead, you can see that the contour lines just collapse all on top of themselves, which means it was going to be an extremely straight descent. But at least I knew we were making our way back out where we could get some help, back out onto the road. Another view was a virtual tour of that trail that I was able to find, and I noticed that crazy U-turn. And if you've hiked at all, you know that means it's going around something, and it was. It was going around those waterfalls. So it meant that we would have to cross that river to the north, and then we'd have to go around the waterfalls, crossing back again, going south, and trying to avoid the waterfalls themselves. This is actually a picture I took that morning. I didn't want her to think I was making light of the situation, but I thought it was important to record just exactly what she was doing. You hear sometimes people say that when you hike the trail, you take responsibility to do all that you can to self-rescue. It's one thing to hear someone say it. It's quite a different thing to actually watch somebody do it. After quite a few hours, we continued down from where we had camped around the waterfalls and finally made it out to the trailhead. Luckily, I was able to get a hold of the same driver who had dropped us off the day before, who was there in a flash and drove us 43 miles back to where we left our car.
But honestly, until we made it to the very end and I sat down and waited for our ride, did I then concentrate on any pain that I was feeling.
So you don't recall crossing either of the waterfall crossings?
No.
Wow. It bothers her that she can't remember the waterfalls, the river crossings, but it's actually no surprise to me. She was so focused, so concentrating on every single step she took. She literally blocked out her surroundings the entire way down. It gives you an idea of how much work it was to simply get herself off that side of the mountain. Once we got to the trailhead at the bottom, how were you feeling at that point?
I was done. I realized that I was probably injured myself more than I thought I had. The leg was throbbing through the toes, up the leg, everything hurt. And I just wanted to go home. That was it. Just take me home.
I firmly believe that when someone begins hiking, they take upon themselves a certain responsibility to be ready for when things go wrong, to be prepared, to understand the right things to do, and to do what's helpful to begin their own process of self-rescue. So I suppose if we had one word of advice or one lesson that we learned that we'd want to share, is just how important it is to simply stop. To stop when something goes wrong, when a good hike doesn't go as planned. It was vitally important to take that moment to stay calm, but also to sit back and think, to think where we were, to think everything out, to observe every one of our options, to understand the weather, our water situation, where we needed to get to, also to know what our cell phone reception was, to take a moment and to study our map, our understanding what we needed to do and to come up with a plan. And then once we had that plan was to proceed, constantly processing just how we were making out. Thank you for watching. We hope you found something in here that might be helpful to you as you prepare for your next hike. We hope that if something goes wrong, as inevitably it will, I suppose, that you're ready and that you remember to simply stop and think, observe and plan. We hope you also take a moment now and subscribe. We look forward to you following us on our Wicked Long Hike.